Hi. So I'm really excited to have another special guest today. Very, very much looking forward to this interview. Would you be willing to introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Gerald Parrish. I am a Black man with dark hair, beard, and glasses. I am autistic. I live in Raleigh, North Carolina. I have over 4 years of experience, serving people with disabilities. I trained independent living skills, specifically on how to travel safely using public transportation, more specifically the bus systems. Uh, I'm currently a co-facilitator at Ability Leadership Project North Carolina, ALP-NC, which is a project by Disability Rights North Carolina.
Yeah. Thank you for the introduction. Yeah, I'm looking forward to asking you about a lot of the things you mentioned. So the first question on our list is just, how has being diagnosed as autistic when you were a child impacted your life, and what barriers did you face?
Well, I was diagnosed when I was 3, um, and I also had a speech delay. So that definitely impacted how I communicated and interacted with other people. Um, you know, and I was, I had special educational needs throughout my elementary school years. Uh, you know, I can remember, just telling my parents, that I wanted to be included, and you know, I always wanted to, because of course, when I was in
Yeah.
special ed, of course, I was in a classroom with other autistic children, and some of them, of course, had higher support needs than me, and then some of them were speaking just like me, and uh, and uh, and I could just remember just yeah, just like, of course, I didn't really know what it meant to be autistic at the time, because I was only a child, but I knew that how I how I communicated, interacted with people was, of course, indeed different. Because pretty much I would say, you know, right, you know, when it came to socializing, I did my best to fit in with my peers, and so of course I started masking probably when I got into my teens. But one of the interesting things is that I say one of the probably one of the best ways that I was able to connect with other children, other peers, was through my special interest, which was at the time was drawing. I used to draw a lot in class and at home, and I mean, and everybody would ask me to, can you draw me a picture of this and and that, and I would do that, and that was kind of a way to kind of connect with other people, and just through that, and then
Oh, no
sorry
problem
about
at
the
all. No problem
disturbance.
at all.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that was my well, no, it's not my child. I don't have any children.
Yeah.
Excuse excuse me if that.
No, no problem. I do have a 4-year-old, and I'm literally pausing Zoom meetings when he comes by, so no problem at all.
Yeah, that's the challenge right there. But yeah, yeah, just so I remember, like, definitely connecting, you know, with other people through my interests, which was, of course, drawing at the time, and then, of course, as and I also loved music growing up, and would make I would beatbox. I would make beats with my mouth. I would imitate the sounds that I hear like on the radio or anything that my parents were playing, you know, playing, and then the kids would ask me, can you make this beat with your mouth? And I said, yeah, sure. I mean, and I would, try to imitate the sounds, the best that I could. It was what that as I would hear it, and so I think all those things definitely led to my special interest in music and and things, and all of that, and because I've always been a creative person, growing up, and I'll say, I did very well in school, like around like middle school, high school. I was, making good grades, and even though even without any like reasonable accommodations, I've had natural supports, through through teachers, more so because the schools that I went to at that time were um they were they were real small,
Mm.
classrooms, and so, and I would be at the front, in front of the class, and so I was able to do very well. But I know that when it came to like testing, like standardized testing, I know that like on the reading comprehension part, like I would score real low on that. Because that just comes to show you that I learn differently than it did differently, and there's just some areas that I just don't that I do very well at. And there's some areas that I do, but even going back to like when I was in special ed, like I was in a class with children who were who had different support needs, that had much different. So even at that time, like I kind of knew that that autism was a spectrum at the time, or that every autistic person was different, different, and in my situation or my case, it was so unique to where I don't really fit into neither the special group of people, and then of course the neurotypical group of people. So I kind of was like in my own lane pretty much, most of my life, I would say, and but as far as like employment and everything, yeah, it's been, you know, obviously a challenge for me, more so because um, just because of the impressions that people have of autistic, because at this time, of course, I was an autistic, became an autistic adult at the time, so I knew that as a child, of course, it was difficult, more so because of because of my behaviors at the time. I did have you know what people might call tantrums, but really they were meltdowns. Of course, it was, and that was the thing. But I know when I was, but I know that when it came to like after I graduated from high school, and of course I went on to college and got a bachelor's degree in music performance. So I pretty much pursued my interests in that, and really wasn't thinking about what I'm going to do with that degree. I mean, other than maybe just take on whatever. Because I know I thought about maybe going into like audio production or for or audio recording at the time, and those are possibilities that I had thought about, but I knew even at that time, and of course my family, my parents, told me that that there's so much that you can do other than just music, and that's and I think I should have listened back then, but but now looking back at it, yeah, I mean they were right, and but I think as far as the hard earned, me working hard towards my degree, of course, I have no regrets on that. 'Cause I think I have a well-rounded education, not just a specific specialized education, as what people would think it is. Like I went to like, a fine art school or program or whatever. But I would say as far as with the employment, of course it was difficult, more so because it's like, the interviews are, can be challenging to people, because I know that eye contact is still a challenge for me.
Mm.
Like, and then sometimes, I have trouble staying on topic sometimes, or talking, more, rather than just, being, rather than just trying to reciprocate,
Mm.
you know. So I know that social reciprocity is still, a challenge for me, obviously. And let's see, you know, and just figuring out what I want to do after, I graduate, like that. Of course, that was definitely, a challenge in itself, because so the first thing that comes to your mind is how you're going to survive,
Mhm.
like, because we all need, to work in order to keep a roof over our heads and keep food on the table. And so those are probably, I guess that's the the thing, that definitely, triggered my anxiety right there. And then of course I took a job. Of course I worked like my first real job. Of course, that job just seemed to be, very stressful due to the fact that, it's a very, socially demanding job. So, of course, I was really drained from because I worked in the call center, and it was really draining. And I think and of course, like I said, probably within the first 2 years or so, like I experienced autistic burnout. For that's just how I knew, like, because all these years, like from high school, from my teen years and on, it's like I've been masking,
Mm.
trying to, and then on the other hand, other people, saying that I don't, look autistic, or that I can't
I'm sorry.
get services, because I'm very, quote unquote high functioning. And so that's definitely been a huge barrier for me, for sure, as far as employment, not just employment, but just, supports and services. That's definitely been the barrier. Looking and being too high functioning is definitely been the main common thing. And like I said, that really, like I said, all that masking, and really led to burnout, and and I realized that, that I needed a change. And I started working at a agency, at a Center for Independent Living. I mean, which was good on the other hand. I mean, it was rewarding on the other hand, but it was, I think, the, the thing that was challenging for me was just working with different, with working with different, individuals who had different, needs, and because, some people, and then of course, just having to deal, and and it was just like, again, like the social piece of that was really, draining, I would say, and it was definitely exhausting and draining, but like I said, it was rewarding, but it was just too much for me, just too overwhelming for me. And 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 somehow, that job wasn't working. And but the good thing, is that, at least, I've been taking the time to, really just find something that really does, fit. And I know that no job is perfect. You know, it's more about, making sure you're advocating for something better, as far as a more accessible, work, environment, and of course, and of course, work uh, responsibilities that are not, that would fit in with my strengths, things that I do best at. Um, and so, yeah, I would say just to sum it up, just definitely, just the way that my autistic brain, processes, is another, it's just, like I say, it can be too much or it can be too little. And I think that, like I said, as far as me appearing, non-autistic, I mean, it's been a challenge for me. It's been very challenging, but that's why, I think it's important for people to know that autism is a spectrum, and that
Mhm.
each individual is unique, and has, you know and then the barriers, obviously, like I said, would be employment, and then of course, just making sure that my support needs are being met.
Mhm.
And sometimes those needs are being denied because they think, oh, they see me, you know just sitting still, not doing anything, not seeing that there's anything wrong with me, and that sort of thing. So yeah, that's definitely been the barrier for me. Of course, would be, as far as employment, and then of course, just you know getting my support needs met.
Thank you so much for that answer. And I think it touched on so many important topics as well. I mean, it sounds like you've been in a really isolating position in a lot of parts of your life. And then that you've also been able to like use some of your special interests and your like passion for advocacy, like autism advocacy to make a pretty big difference as well. And I completely, well, even though I'm probably working in a different environment, I relate a lot to the part about job interviews and how many kind of unspoken rules there are, and how often it can almost feel like the job interview is a test of how neurotypical you can act at times. And I think, it's not intentional on the part of the interviewer, but it can be really quite stressful. I guess the other one other question on this list that I'm really especially interested in your answer to, since I am also a parent of an autistic child, is just if there are any parents of autistic children watching this, what advice would you like to give to us?
Yeah, advice I would give to them,
Mhm.
for one, I mean, it does seem to be more common for parents to compare their child. So yes, I definitely would tell them, don't compare your child to other autistic children. Just know that every autistic person is unique and has different, strengths and support needs. You know, and also don't assume that your child can't advocate or make their own choices. Just because knowing what your child wants and needs is just as important. And let's see if I missed anything, but yeah, I mean, but that pretty much sums it all and just like I said, just like I mean, be open-minded. That's another thing too. Be open to listening to different people. Other than just your just the therapist or the clinician. Like I said, just be open to listening to autistic adults. Because they might have share something that might be that might be similar to what your child is experiencing. Because autistic adults may have been there and done that, and they may have experienced those same things. Maybe they just, like I said, they just didn't know that they were autistic at the time, or they just didn't have, or maybe like I said, they just weren't being heard at the time. And I think the good thing about autistic adults is that, that at least we're being heard.
Yeah, yeah, that's a really good point. I think so much of uh, parenting, like it almost boils down to just making sure that your child is respected and valued for who they are. And like your point, especially about like not comparing, respecting your child no matter like what type of support needs they have. And also the, yeah, something you mentioned earlier struck me a little bit about how you mentioned having meltdowns that were perceived as tantrums. And I think it's so important for people to learn about that so that, a child who's having a meltdown doesn't have to feel ashamed of it or punished for that.
Right. Yeah, it does seem like, parents, punish their children for having a meltdown when that meltdown could be, maybe the environment is just triggering them, or maybe uh was it or maybe just they just might feel, like I said, of course they're going to be overstimulated, overloaded. And emotion regulation is another thing that that needs to be paid attention to too, because some people might, some children might feel, they might just feel really, overwhelmed. And so like if and so let's just say if they were told to do something, they might shut down, you know and that's one of the things, because I know that, you know I know when I get overwhelmed, that's what, I shut down.
Mm.
and and that sort of, but yeah. um but yeah, as far as, yeah, like like I could understand that children, you know are going to be children. I mean, of course, if things don't go their way, of course they're going to, they're going to, you know they're going to throw a fit, and but also, you know some children might not have the right words to say, to express too, so that could explain too, because like they can't just say that, well, I'm having a meltdown, or this light is too bright, or this or the noise is too loud, or that the crowd is too big, like, they might not have the right words to express. And so therefore, yeah, it's just, parents just should be able to discern on what is causing, you know what is triggering that behavior, rather than just say, oh, because or because my child is having a meltdown, therefore my child is disrupting, you know or potentially harming, other people, because again, people might be disturbed, by or disgusted by the behavior. And so that's probably why they feel the need to correct that to correct the child's behavior, when it's not just, the child. It's really the environment that's causing, the behavior.
Yeah, that's such a good point. Thank you. The last question I had on the list is, can you tell us a little bit about your work with, is it pronounced ALP-NC or is it ALP-NC?
I
Um,
mean, but I mean, we usually, we say ALP-NC.
okay, with the ALP-NC, sorry, I wasn't sure the pronunciation. And are there any other advocacy work or goals that you're working on?
Well, I could say, well, what I do at ALP-NC, of course, I'm a co-facilitator, so so I train along with a team of trainers. Some of them, well, most of them have, an IDD, or some of them don't have, IDD, but they might have, some type of connection with the IDD community. We just train, uh, you know, individuals with and without intellectual developmental disabilities, on how to, how to advocate for themselves, and how to, be an advocate leader in their community. So of course, one of the best one of the best ways to advocate for yourself, of course, is by telling, by telling a story, by just through storytelling, telling about your own lived experience, and how, you can use that to empower other people, and, which is a good thing. I mean, of course, not, there's nothing wrong with a success story, but the story should be, should not just be about success. It should be about, you know, failures as well. And because there may be some things that, we're still working on and that have yet to overcome. So yeah, I can understand, the whole controversy with the, inspirational porn and that sort of thing. But I think that, yeah, while it's great to see that somebody with a disability, getting a job or graduating from high school, or 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 they might be, you know pursuing an acting or a modeling career. I mean, which is great. But at the same time, these are real people with real experiences. And you can't really sugarcoat, the disability experience, because this is, because this is what we go through, And as far as the other advocacy work and goals I'm working on, well, I'm working with the with Work Together NC, through the UNC team of people, teach, and the Carolina Institute on Developmental Disabilities, and then of course we're working with different, so yeah, I'm part of the work group for the racial equity and cultural responsiveness, this work group. So I'm definitely trying to represent and empower people of color, other racially marginalized groups of disabled people. I mean, because it does seem like these are the ones that you don't hear or see most from. And so I'm just am proud to really kind of just step up and really just kind of represent that group in my community. And but yeah, I mean, just basically just anything that's relating to employment and just just want to live a better quality of life. And I know from working at a center for independent living, of course, the goal for is to we want everybody to live as independently as possible. But what we don't but of course we all don't realize that we're all human beings. We all need each other, and that we are all interdependent in some ways, basically, because there's things that we can do on our own, and there's things that we need help with. And I think that we do tend to overpraise, people who are very independent, who are very, gifted and talented, and which is good, but we can't forget about those who might not have the same, talents and strengths, and that's the thing that I think that I'm hoping that people would learn and understand. And but I know that that yeah, like especially with the unemployment rate being so high for autistic individuals and other neurodivergent individuals. I mean, that's something that definitely needs to be improved for sure. And I think that employers have to really change, not only make, well, not only try to hire people, you know, autistic individuals, but also try to make the work environment, workplace more accessible to their needs, you know, and so that way they can, you know, keep their job, not only get the job, but to keep the job. And I think that even though the goal has always been to get a job, for us to get a job, but it should be, you know, but the next step should be keeping the job, like so that so that you know no one gets, you know, fired from a job, you know, or you know, or but I mean, of course, you know those things, you know, but just anything, you know, like once they get employment is probably what we need to focus on. And also, you know, just, you know, how people want to live, and and it's important because it does seem like the most frequent thing that a person does when they get a job is, you know, they just need to get paid. But it should be, like I said, but it should be more than just a paycheck. I mean, a paycheck is good, you know, because because you need to, you know, to live, and also be able to do, you know, things that you want, that you like to, that you enjoy doing. But you know, you know, you just want to feel good about the work that you're doing, and that you're contributing, you know, to the world. You know, that's probably the thing that I'm aiming for sure. Like, and I think that, you know, like even the advocacy work that I'm doing is definitely a social cause for sure. But like I said, but it could be something even greater, which, you know, which would be really nice.
That's oh, that's such a great point about yeah, sorry, so many great points. I'm like a little lost at how to respond. I think like one of the things you mentioned about I don't know if like if you feel like this is an accurate summary of what you said, but basically not pushing people to be independent in a way that we're not respecting like the inherent worth of people who um might need support. I think that's yeah, something that's like really urgently needed. And I yeah, I would love to learn more about the other thing you mentioned about not only trying to have equal access and getting a job, but also making sure that people feel comfortable and like feel like they're being valued once they're in a job. So yeah, that's all really really neat.
Yeah, and that's another thing that I've been meaning to touch on, as far as like how parents might worry about like what will happen, you know, when my child grows up, you know, once they, you know, graduate, you know, high school, like what's next for them. Or, and of course, you know, probably the biggest would be, you know, like like what, you know, what happens, you know, when I'm gone,
Mm,
like what happened to my child when I'm gone, you know.
yeah,
It's another big thing, of course.
mm,
But I think, yeah, I think the earlier you start, you know, the better. But you know, but definitely, you know, it's important, you know, just meet them where they are, and it just take, you know, small steps from there, you know. And another thing I didn't, yeah, that I forgot that that I was going to mention was, you know, yeah, just because your child can't speak doesn't mean that they can't communicate. It just
yes,
simply
mm,
means that, you know, that, you know, there's other ways that you just got to find out other ways that they can communicate,
mm,
you know. And I mean, that's one thing I just wish that more parents would know, because some parents are still stuck on the idea that my child has to, you know, speak, and you know, speech shouldn't be the only form of communication, because not everybody, you know, speaks, you know. Like, you know, I could be selectively mute at times. Like there's times when I just feel more comfortable writing than speaking.
yeah. Yeah, that's such a good point. I almost feel like there's this common theme of just having more flexibility. Like yes, if people connect through making eye contact, that's awesome. I genuinely think it's really cool that people can connect that way. I don't understand it personally, but then also having flexibility for other ways of engagement. Like if people want to speak, that's great, but then having flexibility for other forms of communication. I feel like that's something that kind of society in general is missing. I think, yeah. But yeah, thank you so much again for your time and for sharing your experiences and some of the current work that you're doing as well. Really appreciated it.
Thank you, thank you for having me, Sam.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, thank you again. I'll just stop the recording now.